Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. So in this new course of Introduction to Python Programming, we're going to be learning the very basics of Python for anyone who is interested in learning Python. So we'll be covering from the very basic syntax of Python to more advanced levels. During the process, we're going to go ahead and build up a couple of projects. We'll learn a bit about data science and machine learning. We'll learn how to build web applications using Python. We'll learn how to build video games using Python and all of that. Okay, so this course is mainly aimed for anyone who is a complete beginner to programming, doesn't know programming at all, and wants to learn a programming language. Python is a great way to start and a good programming language to learn, comparing to the considering the modern programming environment. This course also aimed at anyone who is from other programming languages but also wants to switch to Python. Okay, so if you already know maybe a language like C++ or Java and you're planning on shifting to another Python, planning to shift to Python, then this course is also for you. This course is also aimed at anyone who is already a programmer in Python but just wants to brush things up and get access to learn latest Python syntax. Okay, because we'll be covering during this course we'll be going over latest Python syntax as we teach Python. Okay, so that the course can be relevant for a longer time as much as possible. We'll be covering things like type hints and other stuff like that. So if you're already a Python programmer, then you can still take this course and learn modern Python syntax. Okay, so let's just take a look at what programming is before we even begin to jump in this course. Okay, so what is really programming? What is programming? What's coding? Or in the media or on social media, you might hear people saying coding or programming is the same term, right? So what are they really meaning when they're talking about I'm going to writing a code, I'm going to writing a program? What does programming really mean? So let's just take a quick look at this video and tries to explain what programming is from a fundamental point of view. Okay.
Hi, welcome to programming. You might wonder what programming is if you've never learned to program. When we write a program, we give the computer a series of commands that look like a weird form of English. You can think of a computer as a very obedient dog, listening to your every command and doing whatever you tell it to do. So what's so cool about programming? Well, it depends on what you think is cool. Because, as it turns out, you can use programming for almost everything. Programs control robots that can take care of patients, and my favorite is robots that can roam around Mars and look for water on the surface. Programs help self-driving cars know how to turn, which is pretty essential. Programs help doctors cure diseases by processing vast amounts of medical data. Programs can be entertaining, games like Doodle Jump, Angry Birds, and Minecraft. Programs make it possible for Pixar to create their incredible 3D animated movies and for movies like Harry Potter to have such cool special effects. What's your favorite movie? I bet that a computer helped make it somehow. Programs are behind the websites and the apps that you use every day, all the time, like Google Maps, Wikipedia, and YouTube, and of course, where you are now, Code with Prince. On Code with Prince, you'll learn how to write Python programs to make games, web, and AI applications. And that will be a great start towards creating whatever you imagine. It might be hard to see how a drawing program relates to programs for robots or curing diseases. But believe it or not, the same basic concepts are used by every programmer in every program. Once you learn to program Python, you'll be able to learn other programming languages much more quickly. Now you gotta keep going.
So from the video, I hope you guys have a good introduction to what programming is in general, or what coding is in general. So I hope that video helped to explain a lot of things to you and also motivates you to take on this course. So in this course, we'll be learning programming using the Python programming language. And if you're an absolute beginner to Python, Python is one of the modern and mostly used programming languages in the current programming environment, and it has a lot of things you can do with Python. You can do a lot of things from data science to web development and so on. Okay, so Python is a good language to learn if you are new to programming and you want to pick up a new skill. Then this programming language is the best for you. Or if you are shifting from other programming languages, then this course is aimed at you. Okay, so let's just move on and look at what the course outline is going to be covering. So in this course outline, you're going to go ahead and cover a couple of things. So we will learn how to install Python on Windows, on Linux, and on the MacBooks. Okay, so if you're using any of those operating systems, you can follow along. And then we'll go on learn how to set up an IDE. So an IDE just stands for integrated development environment, and we'll be using is what we set up in programming to enable us to code, like the different editors has to be using. Like for example, if you want to prepare a document, you'll be using something like Google Docs, or we're using Microsoft Word, right? So for coding, we have our own editor that we use to write code. Okay, so we'll be learning how to set all that up and integrate it to your Python that you're going to install. Okay, and then we'll move on to writing our first Python program. We're just going to write a simple program in Python, and that will be the first program that you have written. You'll be writing in case you are new to programming. That will be your first programming language, the program that you will be writing, right? Okay, so let's learn how something simple and just print a simple maybe hello world with Python, or do a simple programming concept. Yes, basically it. Okay, it's something very, very simple. And then to move on to learn why Python. Why should you learn Python programming language? Why is Python useful? Why can Python be used? Okay, to make sure that while you're taking this course because you see value in Python, and not just taking the course for the sake of taking the course, because taking the course because you have a purpose is the number one motivator to make sure that you complete this course. Okay, so look at why you should learn Python. Okay, and then we move on to who is this course for. And this course, just go ahead and say who this course is for straight away. So this course is for anyone who is completely new to programming. You have never done any kind of coding in your life before. This course is aimed at you. This course is also aimed at anyone who has done programming before, maybe in other programming languages, but wants to shift to Python. Then this course is for you, as you learn Python through using the modern Python syntax. They cover things like type hints and so on. Okay, and this course also aimed at any Python developer who just wants to brush up and learn new syntax of Python, and just catch up with the modern Python, because Python is a continuously evolving language. Okay, so then we'll move on to learning what projects we'll cover. So let me just mention the project we'll cover. We'll be building a video game using Python. We'll be learning a bit of machine learning, which is called AI, or data science. We'll be doing a bit of machine learning, and then we'll be learning how to build a website. And at the end, you're going to simply learn how to build a simple portfolio website that you can post on you're going to host on the internet, and you can share this link with your family, your friends, on anyone online, so they can see what work you have done and how much you have learned from this course, and your programming abilities, right? So something like that, something very simple portfolio project that you can also use maybe to apply for jobs or other stuff like that. Okay, and then finally we'll move on to learning the fundamentals of programming. So we'll learn what a variable is, what a data types, what a function, if and else statement, loops, the list, dictionaries, and stuff like that. We'll learn the basic fundamentals of programming. So if you are complete new to programming, don't worry about all these terms. We'll just cover them. And then we'll move on to more complicated stuff such as object-oriented programming. We'll cover things like classes, objects, and etc. Okay. For after that, to go and hide and build a different project that is mentioned in part 6, right? So we'll learn the different projects that you're going to be building. Okay, that's when we begin building websites, begin video games, we'll begin to do AI or data science. Okay, we'll cover a bit of natural language processing as well. Okay, so that's basically the course outline for this course. Okay, so now that you look at the course outline for this course, why should you really learn Python? Why is Python important? Okay, in which areas can Python be applied? So let's take a look at all of that. So Python can be used in the area of artificial intelligence. So nowadays we have a lot of artificial intelligence all around us from our phones. You can use facial recognition to unlock your phone. You can use we have self-driving cars, things like Tesla and all of that. So all these things use artificial intelligence, right? So artificial intelligence comes in different formats and different ways. So we're just going to learn the very basics of artificial intelligence. You're going to learn how to process data, how to build machine learning models and stuff like that. Okay, so we're going to do a simple project about email classification. We're going to teach the computer the ability to classify an email as spam email or not spam email. For example, if you're on Gmail, you can see some emails get classified as spam while others don't get classified as spam. So who does all these classifications? That's all done by artificial intelligence models, and we'll learn how to build a simple system that can classify emails as spam or not spam. Okay, so that's one of the areas where Python is useful. So if you're a person who's aimed at doing artificial intelligence in the future, this is one great reason you should learn Python. Okay, so Python is also used in web development. So in web development, we can things like building websites. Right now we have websites all around us. A lot of our applications are around websites, interacting with websites through browsers. Constantly on our laptops and mobile devices, and we are constantly interacting with websites. So websites have become a great part of our life. So Python plays a very important role in building major websites. For example, Instagram at its initial stage was built using Python. So Python can build learn Python to build a lot of stuff. So in this course, we actually learn a bit of web development. As I mentioned earlier on, you're going to learn how to build a website. You're going to learn how to build a to-do list in Python using Python, famous Python framework called Django, which you can use to build web applications. So you're going to learn how to build just a simple web application with Python Flask. Once you are done, you can also learn how to build a simple portfolio that I will teach you how to host on the internet. So you can send the link to anyone, your family members, your mom, your dad, your uncles, anyone who you want to share the link with. The person can view your website and see what your creativity, what you have done with your programming skills, or what you have learned throughout this course. So we're going to build that almost at the end of the course. So stay tuned and make sure that you also like and subscribe the YouTube channel for so that you can make sure that you build a portfolio and host it on the internet. Okay, so Python can also be used in game development, building video games basically. So in Python, you can use Python to build video games. Python is not the most popular language for building video games, but yes, you can build video games in Python. So if you have Python libraries such as Pygame, yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Pygame can be used to build video games, and you're going to see how to build video games in this series. As we finish learning the base of Python and learn object-oriented programming, we'll move on into building video games with Python. So we're going to be using Pygame to build a simple game, a Space Invader game in Python. So we have an alien craft, and you have like a spaceship that's shooting down the alien craft and getting points like that. Something very simple just to introduce to the world of game development in Python. So we also learn how to build games using Python. Also, Python is also very useful because it's used in the area of artificial intelligence, so and data analysis, as I said earlier on. So data analysis is just helps companies, organizations, and businesses to make sense of their data. So in this modern age, we are constantly generating a ton of data. For example, considering YouTube, the platform on which you're watching this video right now, there are a ton of videos that have been posted on the platform, right? So each day we are constantly generating tons and tons of data. So how are we able to analyze this data and process this data? We can do this manually, right? So we need to write a program to do that for us. And that's where Python is really powerful. As Python is the most commonly used language in data analytics. Okay, so we're going to learn how to do a bit of data analysis when you go into the machine learning part. I also have a whole series on data analysis with Python. So if you want to learn that, let me know. I'll drop the link in the comment section below so you guys can have access to that. So we'll be learning a bit of data analysis, covering things like statistics, how to find the mean of data, the mode of data, all of that. Okay, so it's a lot. So this data analysis is a huge field, and Python is the most used language when it comes to the field of data analysis. So we're going to be covering data analysis as well. So before we even get started programming and doing all of that, so one thing I really want you to encourage you guys is programming. Most of us have the idea of programming being a difficult language, but programming really isn't. Programming being a difficult thing, but programming really isn't a difficult thing. It's just like the way you learn human languages, right? Like we can learn Chinese or learn Japanese or anything like that. Programming is very similar to it. It's just that you're learning a different language to talk to a computer, basically. Just instructing the computer on what to do, how to do it, and depending on your action or your end desire that you are aiming for. So that's basically what running programming is. And programming at the beginning can sound a bit difficult. Like when I started programming initially, I found it a bit like, okay, this is a bit like out of like the normal human interactions or things that I do. So it was a bit tricky at the beginning, but trust me, after a few days of being consistent and learning and putting in the effort, Python programming would just turn out to be one of the most easy things you've ever learned. Trust me on this one, because I have been there and I also learned programming just like the way you guys are starting right now. I also was there once, and it can be challenging at first, but just motivate yourself. Things like switch off your internet from your phone, of your devices when you're learning. Like get off social media for a while. Like put off your Facebook, put off your Instagram, LinkedIn. Just put off all the Snapchats and all of that, and just focus for 2 hours, 1 hour per day, 1.5 hour per day. And trust me, the consistency is gonna really pay off. So that's one of the things you need to do. So it can be a difficult task to pick up. So once you are learning Python, try to make sure that you are not distracted as much as possible throughout this course, and that can involve eliminating things like social media, like Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, all this. YouTube is where you're watching this from, so I hope you don't have any distractions on YouTube. But try to limit your access to other things while learning Python, just like So you can make it as a commitment to yourself that, hey, every day I'm going to switch off my social media just for 1 hour and I'm going to focus on programming, because programming can be difficult to pick up, and it can take you a longer time to pick it up. If you waste more time or get distracted, you might find it even more difficult to learn. So that's one of the things I really want to stress on. You really need to put in your effort and your dedication in order to learn programming. Okay, that's one of the things I can tell you from having to learn programming myself. I actually literally taught myself programming back in my first year of high school, so it can be difficult to learn, especially if you're distracted. Okay, so make sure that you keep your social media, your phone on silence, and just focus and give it your time. Just 2 hours to 1 hour to 2 hours a day. I assure you, the benefits are gonna be great. Okay, so just put in that effort and try to focus on it. It's not that difficult, and don't give up. I hope no one gives up, and all of us are able to endure through the end until the end of this course. Okay. Okay, so the first thing you're going to be doing, you're going to learn how to install Python. Okay, so you're going to be learning how to install Python, and in Python there are two main versions of Python. There's Python 3 and there's Python 2. Okay, so in this course you're going to be going with Python 3. Okay, you're going to learn the old Python 3 and the syntax, because Python 2 is I think it's Python 2 is even depreciated. I'm not really sure, but Python 3 is what you're using right now, and that's what everybody's using here on onwards. Okay, so we're going to be learning how to install Python 3 on Windows, on Linux, and on Macbook, so that you guys can all follow along. Okay, so one thing about this into this course is that I have a Windows machine. Okay, I also have a Linux machine, but I don't actually have a MacBook, so I won't be demonstrating things on MacBook for you, but I'll give you all the instructions and all the I read a lot of articles on how to install Python on MacBook. So don't worry, I'll provide you all the details and all the content you need. So if you're following on MacBook, you also be covered. But on Windows and Linux, I'll actually do a demo to show you how to do it on those two operating systems. But for MacBook, I'm just going to give you a detailed explanation with detailed text document that you can guide you step by step on how to set up Python on MacBook. MacBook already has Python pre-installed. We'll look at that later on. So I just let you how to download VS Code and other text editors and stuff like that for Python, and I will lead you through all of that. So don't be worried, we'll go over all of it. So once we have Python installed, we're going to go ahead and install the IDE. But first of all, let's make sure that we have Python installed. So I'm just going to go back in here and let's make sure we have Python installed. So first of all, let's go over how to install Python on a Windows machine, because I believe most of you guys are probably on a Windows machine. Okay, so let's go over and see how we can install Python on a Windows machine. So we're going to go ahead and learn how to install Python on our Windows machine. So to install Python on Windows machine, first of all, what we need to do is just get the Python installer. So to get the Python installer, I'm simply going to go ahead and click on this link right here. And again, I'm going to share the document with you of this link, and guys can get access to the document and work with it. So to install Python on Windows, you have to download first the Python installer. So it's just like the way we install any Python application. So I've just clicked on this link right here, and it's going to install Python 3.11, and Python 3.11 is fine to work with. You can work with Python 3.8 and above. So yeah, so once we have that done, you can also see there are different other versions of Python listed down here in case you want to download any other version of Python, but let's just keep it Python 3.11. So once that's downloading, you can see it right here. I'm just going to click it, and it's going to pop up the installer. So I'm just going to one thing you need to do is add Python to the path. Okay, so make sure that you have that clicked, and then simply click install now. Okay, so always make sure that you click add Python to the path, which is just a small check button at the bottom. So make sure that you click on that check button. So once it's going to go ahead and install Python on our machine, and once Python is installed, we can let me just go back here and go back to the official document here, the document which I have, and let's see what's done. So let's we have downloaded the installer, so just double click the installer to install Python, and that's installing Python right here, right? So yeah, that's basically it. So let's wait for it to get downloaded. Okay, so we also need to go ahead and also install Python on MacBook and on Linux, and you're going to do just in a second. But for now, let's make sure that you have Python set up on our Windows machine, and you can see it's installed successfully. So once it's done, you can just click close, and that's going to go ahead and close it. Okay, so once that's done, we are going to go ahead and learn how to install Python on MacBooks and on Linux machines, and that's going to be in the next one. So let's go ahead and see how we can install Python for MacBook and Linux users. Okay. So now that we're taking a look at how to install Python on a Windows machine, let's move on to installing Python on a MacBook and on a Linux machine. So on a MacBook and a Linux machine, these two operating system comes with Python pre-installed. But the current version of Python on these operating systems is Python 2, right? So in this case, as I mentioned earlier, I'll be covering Python 3 because that's the modern Python. So Python 2 is on pre-installed on MacBooks and on Linux machines. Okay, so you can also just check if you have that installed by using the following commands here. Again, if you guys want access to this MacBook, the document that I've prepared, let me know. I'll just share it with you guys. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy this command right here, and then just go ahead and move on to my terminal. So this is just a terminal that I open up you can just type in terminal. If you're using Ubuntu, like on me, you can just go in here and just type in terminal, and then you can just open up the terminal. If you're on MacBook, I don't know, I've never actually had a MacBook before, so I don't know how to open the terminal on MacBook, but you can just search for terminal and then you open it. Okay, so in Windows it's CMD or PowerShell, whatever, but on Windows, on MacBooks and on Linux machines, they are called terminals because Windows and MacBooks and Linux machine are both Unix based systems and they're called terminals. So just copy this command and simply go inside of your terminal and simply paste it here. So this command is gonna work for both Linux and Mac users. So if you're using Windows, we covered how to set up Python on Windows already. So if you run this command, you get the current version of Python that's installed. So if you just say Python, right, MacBooks and Linux machines return to you Python 2. So you can see the current version of Python 2 that's installed on my machine is Python 2.18, right? 2.7.18, and that's the current version of Python currently installed, and that's the pre-installed version of Python on these two operating systems. Okay, so if you want to check the if the Python 3, you just have to say change this to be Python 3. So just copy this command and paste it here. So the only difference between the two commands is just here, so it's just 3. So just run that and it's going to return to the current version of Python 3. So if you've never installed Python 3 on your machine, then this might not work for you. This might give you an error saying Python 3 is not defined or something cannot be found, right? So if this works for you, good, means you have Python 3 installed, and that should work for both Linux and Mac users. If you just bought a MacBook today, this command will still work for you because Python 2 is pre-installed on MacBooks and on Linux machines. Okay, but Python 3 is not. So if you run this command and you have an issue, means that you don't have Python 3 installed. And let's go ahead and show you how to install Python 3. So for MacBook, those guys who are using MacBook, the instructions to install Python 3 on the MacBook, the instructions are right here. So you can just click on this, and I'm going to share this link with you so that you guys can have access to it. So it's just a short documentation explaining to you what you need to do to have Python 3 installed. Okay, so to install Python 3, you can just go to official documentation of Python. So you can just click on this and you can go to official documentation of Python. You can see it's telling you to click on the download button. So once you click on this download button, it's going to download the Python installer. And once you have the Python installer downloaded, you can just double click it, and just like the way you install any applications on MacBook, and you can just follow the steps as they give you right here and then install it. So that's very simple to do. Just download the executable, and once you have it downloaded, you can just go ahead and I think it's double click on MacBook. Windows is double click, right? So yeah, even on MacBook, you just double click the file, the installer, and that's going to go ahead and install Python for you. Just follow the instructions and install Python, and that's all you need to do to have Python 3 installed. And once you have that installed, you can confirm it by, let me just go back in here. You can confirm it by, you can go back to your terminal and then run the command of Python 3, and that should return to you now the current version of Python 3 that you install. So the latest right now, it is Python 3.11. So Python is regularly changing. As you can see, there are different versions of Python as time goes on. So this might change for you in the future, but for now the latest is Python 3.11. okay, so that should these instructions should help you to install Python 3 on a MacBook. Okay, so once you have it installed, you can confirm it by simply running this command right here, Python 3 and then hyphen version, and then it will give you the Python 3 version. If you're having problems with it, just try to close your terminal and then try to reopen it again after installing Python, and that it should pick it up. Okay, good. So once we have that covered, I'm just going to go back one step back into my documentation. And for Linux users to install Python 3, we already checked Python 2 version installed. We have checked Python 3. So if you don't have Python 3 installed as a Linux user, these are the following commands to install Python 3. So just write sudo update and then update your system. My system is already updated. I do have all the software installed, so I don't need to run all this, but I'm just going to walk you guys through. After that, you run this command right here, and this command is going to set up some some software properties for you. So after running this command right here, if you remember, you're using sudo, right? So sudo is going to ask you for a password, so just type in your password and allow access to your to install this. So once you have that installed, you just go ahead and install this one as well. Run this command to install a couple of things. Again, all the link to all this command, the link to this the link to this document is going to be on the description. It's going to be in the description, so you guys can have access to it. Okay, so I'm going to provide these documents as we go through the whole series. In case I have any document to share with you, I'm just going to leave it in the description. You can find the link to all these documents in the description of the video. Okay, so once you run that command, that should install some apt repositories for you. After that, you're going to go ahead and install Python 3.10, right? You can change this to 3.11 if you want. So just make sure you run this command, and it's going to install for you Python 3.10 in this case. If you want to install 11, just change that to be 11, but just go with Python 3.10. I think it's just very good. Okay, so after that, you go ahead and install the Python 3 VNV for creating a virtual environment, and then you can install Python 3 dev. Okay, so once you have that, you can confirm Python install by running this command. It's gonna check the Python 3 version. Okay, like the way we did it up here, down here, or just in the terminal. It isn't done to the Python version that you have installed. For me, I have 3.10.6. Okay, so you're going to return the current Python 3 version that you've already installed, or the Python 3 version that you have. Okay, so once you can also run this command to check again the Python 3.10 specific version. Okay, so that's all fine. So that once you have that done, then you have Python installed for both MacBooks and Linux. So for MacBook, it's actually very much easier. You just have to download the Python executable, double click it, and install it like you install any software, just like we did on Windows. For Linux, you just have to run these couple of commands to install it. So I can just pause the video here. You can just pause the video and type out these commands, or you can get the documentation and the document I'm going to share with you, and just copy paste these commands to make sure that you have Python installed. So if you want to copy paste them, don't go ahead and copy all of this at once. No, just copy each command at a point. Okay, so each command at a point, and make sure that you don't include this right here. So just copy from the sudo and in here. Okay, so make sure there's no space before the sudo. So just no, this is wrong. So just simply go ahead and copy from the S until the end point here, and just install it. So make sure you copy like this and then run the command. So don't copy the $sign in front of it, just to show that these commands are for the terminal. Okay, just like that we have the $sign in the terminal right here. So that's something simple. So if you see the $sign like this in programming, it's just probably telling you that's for the terminal. You're supposed to run the command in the terminal. Okay, or the CMD or PowerShell on Windows. So yeah, that's how you can have Python installed on your machine. So now that you have learned how to install Python on a MacBook and a Linux machine operating systems, let's learn how to see how we can simply run Python on these systems. Okay, so to run Python on the Linux or MacBook operating system, what you simply have to do is simply go ahead and simply type in Python 3 instead of your terminal. So I'm just going to go inside of my terminal. I'm just going to clear the terminal. I can just hit Control and L to clear it. So this is going to also work for MacBook. MacBook is going to be Command and L, right? So you can just type in clear, and it's going to clear the terminal. Okay, so once we have that done, I'm just going to type in Python 3 and just press enter. So it's going to open the Python interpreter on your MacBook or on your Linux machine. So once you have that, you can simply write a simple Python program. You're just going to say print, and I'm going to say hello world, and hello world is in quotes, right? So just use double quotes. I don't want to go into the details of programming, so just use double quotes for now. Say print parentheses quotes hello world, close the quotes, and then close the parentheses, and just press enter, and it's just going to print hello world. Okay, so that's simple how to write a simple hello world program in Python. So that's so that you have Python properly installed and you're ready to go. So once we have that, you can simply go ahead and hit exit, and it's going to go ahead and exit out. Okay, so once we are exited out, that's great. So so let's go back to the documentation and see what more we have. So we have installed Python. We make sure that it works. Okay, so once we have that down, you're going to go ahead and set up an IDE. Okay, so to set up an IDE, let's go first of all, and let me show you how to do it on Windows, and later we'll move back to how to do the same thing for Windows, for Mac, for Linux book. Okay, so the command that I'm going to show you on a Windows machine is also going to work for MacBook. You're just going to install VScode. Okay, so for Linux machine it's a bit different. So let's first of all begin with Windows and Mac, and then later we'll move on to a Linux machine. Okay, so let me just switch to my Windows machine. So guys, yeah, welcome back. So I switched back to my Windows machine. So probably you guys have gone ahead and installed installed Python on Windows, or if you guys are using Linux and MacBooks, you also have Python installed at this point. So, okay, so one thing we didn't do in Windows is to check the Python version. So we can do that in Windows simply just by going and searching for your CMD. So just search for CMD, which is just your command prompt, right? So just open up your command prompt, and once that's open up, in Linux and MacBook, you have to say Python and then Python, maybe Python 3, and then hyphen version. So that is not going to work for you on Windows machine, because it's going to tell you Python is not found, right? So what you simply have to go ahead and do instead is simply say py and then hyphen version, and that's run that. It's going to return to the Python version, right? So we install Python 3.11.0, so you can see Python version now is Python 3.11.0. So let me just maximize this and then zoom in so that you guys can see exactly the commands that I wrote. So I just did py and then hyphen version, and it's going to return to me the Python version right here. If you use Python 3 hyphen version like on MacBook and on Linux, it's not gonna work for you. Okay, so good. So we have now Python installed, and we have that confirmed on that. So we can also go ahead and run a Python code as we did on MacBook and on Linux machine. And what you can simply go ahead and do here is just simply say py, which is best py, and it's going to open the Python interpreter, right? So once the Python interpreter is open, what I can simply go ahead and do is simply say print and then say hello world, and then simply close that off. So we're just going to say print and then have parentheses and then quotes and then hello world or whatever you want to type in, and then you make sure that you close the quotation afterwards and then close the parentheses. So if I press enter right now, it's just going to print hello world, and congratulations, that's just your first Python program. So good. So you can exit out. You're just going to say exit and then just type out like this, just open and close parentheses. Okay, so we're going to look at what all this is later on as we go along through the course. So let me just go ahead and type in CLS, which is this clear, the equivalent of clear if you're coming from MacBook or Linux machine. Okay, so good. So we have Python installed and it's running well, and we have confirmed that. So the next thing we're going to go ahead and do, we're going to go ahead and install an IDE. So an IDE stands for an integrated development environment. Okay, so I'm going to show how to install an IDE called VScode, and VScode is a text editor that is provided, or integrated development environment provided by Microsoft, and you can use this for all on Linux, on MacBook, or on the Windows machine. So I'm going to show you how to install this for Windows and MacBook. For Linux machines, we'll do that just in a second, but for now, let's just go and see how you can install this for MacBook and on Linux machine. So all the commands and the steps are going to perform in this section are also going to apply for MacBook, even though I'm on Linux on a Windows machine. It's the same commands, basically the same steps on Linux as well. So I'm just going to click on this command right here, and it's going to go ahead and open the official documentation for VS Code, which is just code.visualstudio.com. So you can just type that in your browser, and then you can get access to the website. So that once I'm on the website, you can just go ahead and select which operating system you're working with. Well, in this case, you're going to be working with a Windows machine. So if you're on a MacBook, then you just have to click your Mac or book. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and install this. Okay, so if you're the Visual Studio Code of your website is also smart, and it's able to pick up your operating system by default. So if you're on Mac, then this will be for Mac. If you're on Windows, it'll be for Windows. If you're on Linux, it's going to be for Linux. But on Linux, again, I will show you how to install this, so don't download this if you're on Linux. Okay, so once I have this, I'm just going to go ahead and just click install. Once I click install, it's going to go ahead and download the executable, which I'm just going to go ahead and execute, and it's going to go ahead and install VS Code for us. So if you know what VS Code is, it's going to look something like this. So maybe you probably watched movies of programmers typing things like in dark text editors and stuff like that. So the Visual Code is something of that sort. So maybe let me just scroll through it so you can look at more pictures of VS Code. So VS Code can help you to run your code instead of VS Code. You can have different themes. You can have different, just like you can see each of the text has different colors. It just makes your text look good. It has gives you ability to format your code, gives you auto completion whenever you're writing code. So it gives us a lot of features that makes really good advantage in programming. So it's really good text editor to have. So let's just install VS Code. The other text editors like Sublime, PyCharm that you can use, but in this case we'll just be using VS Code, because VS Code does not only support one language like PyCharm or Eclipse that's used for Java. VS Code supports multiple languages, C++, Java. So if you already have, if you're coming from other programming languages, then and you have VS Code installed, then you can just add Python to it without having to do much work, right? So let's just wait for this to get installed. Yeah, guys, so you can see we're almost done with the download part. Is just like 3 MBs left, so let's just wait for this to get downloaded. In the meantime, I can just go back to the official documentation. Again, if you want to read, you can read about all these sections. So it supports Python. There's also Jupyter for data science. We'll look at it when we reach a part of data science. We also have Prettier for formatting our code, and you're going to install Prettier. And you also have live server for opening HTML files and other stuff like that. Okay, so this is a common, just an outlay of VS Code. You can check out the different shortcut keys and all that. Okay, so yeah, that's it. So once it's done installing, I'm just gonna go ahead and double click this part right here. So once it's clicked, I'm just going to go ahead and click on accept. So I accept and just say next, and next, and then say next. Okay, so or just say next and then next to install. So once it's going to go ahead and install VS Code for us. So let's give this a bit of time, and it's going to go ahead and install VS Code. So yeah, that was done, so quite quick. So click finished, and it's going to open up VS Code. So this is how VS Code looks like. Okay, so yeah, that's it. So we have VS Code installed, and we'll come back to it just in a second. But for now, I'm just going to go back to the official to this documentation. Again, if you're also following on along with Macbook, it's the same thing. You just download it, and just double click the file that the executable that you download, even on Macbook, and just follow the instructions just like that. So now I'm going to go ahead and show you how to install VS Code on a Linux machine. Okay guys, so now we have seen how to set up VS Code, which is the text editor that we'll be using through this programming series. So we have looked at how to set up your integrated development environment through VS Code on Windows, and the same thing is going to work for MacBook as well. So let's look at how to do it on Linux. So on Linux, a bit different. So what you have to do is, I already have VS Code installed, and you can see it right here on my side panel right here. So my dock panel right here, and you can see I have Python already, VS Code already installed. So to install it, you guys, what you have to do, just to save time, just go ahead and copy this command right here, and just simply paste it in your terminal, and then press enter. It's going to go ahead and install VS Code, the snap, using snap. Okay, so if you don't have to know what snap is or anything like that, just know that if you copy this command and paste it on your terminal and run it, it's going to ask you for a password. Just type in your password. If it doesn't, means you have already authenticated. And then once you have that installed, it's going to install VS Code for you. So you can just go into your where your app sign, just search for VS Code. So VS Code, and then just open up this. You can find it right there. For now, we'll come back to VS Code. So don't worry about VS Code. We'll come back to it just in a second. So once you have that, you can simply go in your terminal and just type VS Code and dot. So I'm just going to terminal and show you. So just clear this and just say code and then dot, and that's going to go ahead and open up VS Code on your terminal. So this is going to also work for MacBook and also Windows as well. So again, don't worry about all these things. I will cover all of them in just in a second. This all appear because I've opened up VS Code from my root directory, so that's why I have all this. Okay, so don't worry about all this. We'll cover all of this just as we go along. So let me just close this for now, and let me just go back to the documentation right there. So yeah, great. So once we have all those installed, there are a couple of things that we need to install to set complete our environment. We need to install Python, we need to install Prettier or Pep 8, and also we need to go ahead and install Code Runner. Okay, so whether you're on Windows or you're on MacBook, just follow that along with these commands to install the following extensions that we need. So just go ahead. I'm just going to go ahead and open up my VS Code, or you can just go inside of your search field right here and just type in VS Code and just open it up like this, and that will also work for you. Okay, so open VS Code any way that you know how to open VS Code. So once you'd have that VS Code open up, just go on the side panel. Let me just minimize this for now. Just go on the side panels right here and just search for extensions. This is the icon for the extensions tab. So just press the extension tab and have it open. So once it's open up, just search for Python. So the first one to install is Python. So we want to install Python right here to complete set up our IDE, right? So just click on typing on Python and just click on the first link. So this is gonna be a Python library that helps you to write Python code, helps you to format Python code. You can see debugging, linting, and all of that. So just go ahead and click on install. I already have it installed, but in your case, you will not be installed. So make sure that you just click install to have it installed. So once it's installed, one thing you also need to have is the Prettier. So in Prettier just help us to format our code. So just go in here and just type in Prettier. So Prettier with a double T, and just wait for a slash. So once you get this back, make sure that you also install this. Okay, so Prettier it just helps you to format your code and make sure your code looks cleaner and nicer. Okay, so once we have that done, we also want to install AutoPep 8. So let's go in here and then search for AutoPep 8. So AutoPep 8 is just a Python set of Python conventions that we follow. Okay, so let's AutoPep 8, and just click on it and make sure that you have AutoPep 8 installed. So it helps you to help you to format your code following a set of Python conventions that is set by the AutoPep 8, defined in AutoPep 8. Okay, so just make sure that you have that also installed. And also we want to install Code Runner, and Code Runner will help us to run our code in VScode. So just go ahead and type in Code Runner and just click enter. So let me just wait for this. So this opens up, and just click on install, and Code Runner helps you to run your code, your C++ code, your Java code, your Python code. In this case, you're interested in Python, so it's going to help us to run our Python code. So great. So once we have that done, we are ready to go. So great, we have everything set up as we should. So let me just go back to documentation and see what's next. So we're going to go ahead and create a see. So we have installed all the extensions. We have installed the Python extension. We have installed the Prettier extension. We have installed the AutoPep 8 extension. We also have installed the Code Runner extension. So great, we have everything set up and you are ready to go. So now I'm also going to show you how now to write your first program in Python. So to run your first program in Python, there are a couple of things we need to do. The first thing I would like to do is to create a directory or a folder where we can keep all our stuff in, and then finally we can just go ahead and run our code. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is simply create a folder, and I'm going to show how to create a folder through the terminal. Okay, so right now we can see I'm in C drive users /prints, right? So \prints on Windows, and Macbook is / and on Windows on MacBooks and on Linux is / and then on Windows is \. So I'm going to go ahead and just change directory. So I'm going to change directory, just cd, and I'm going to change my directory to my desktop. So I'm going to type in desktop with a capital D. So if you're on Windows is not case sensitive, so you can also type the directory with a small d to also work. But if you're on MacBooks and on Linux, it's case sensitive, so you have to type in a capital D. Okay, so once we have here, you can see that we are now on our desktop. So if I do a dir just says it's gonna list for us all the available current files or folders in the current directory, which is just the desktop. So right now you can see after running dir, I have no folders or files on my desktop, right? So if you're on MacBook and on Linux, this equivalent of this command is ls. Okay, so ls command. So if you're on Windows and on Mac, you just run ls. Okay, so once I'm on my desktop right now, and you can see I'm on desktop right here, and on MacBook, on Windows, or MacBook, on Linux, you have the same desktop being up here. Okay, so once I'm on my desktop, I'm going to simply say mkdir. So mkdir just says make directory. So mk for make, and then dir for directory. So mkdir just says make directory, and this command is going to work for both for all systems, right? For Linux, for MacBooks, and for Windows. Okay, so we're going to make a directory. We're going to call this directory let's just say intro to let's say Python. So intro to Python, and just press enter. So once you have made that directory made, if I run dir again, or if you're on MacBook or on Linux, it's gonna be ls. Okay, so if I press enter, you can see now I have a folder here called Python, which was previously not there. So now you can see now it's here. So now I'm going to change directory into my intro to Python folder, and now I should be inside of my intro to Python folder. So now I can see I'm in desktop intro to Python folder. So if you're on Linux book or MacBook, Linux or a MacBook, you should get something very similar. So I'm going to clear the terminal. If you're on MacBook, on Linux, you're going to type in clear. But if you're on Windows, you just type in cls and just press enter. So if you're on MacBook and on Linux, type in clear. If you're on Windows, just type in cls and it's going to clear the terminal. Okay, great. Clearing the terminal basically means it brings everything to the top and looks like fresh terminal. That's basically what I mean. So once I have this done, now I'm going to go ahead and open up my VS Code. So I'm going to go ahead and open a VS Code, go in here and just say open folder. Okay, so I'm just going to say open folder, and I'm going to go into my desktop, because I have on my desktop now, you can see I have intro to Python folder, and that's the folder that we created in here, right? So you can also just go ahead and create this folder just by using the UI, but it's very good that you learn how to use the terminal as a programmer, because that's what we're using most of the time. So okay, good. So you can see we have opened intro to Python folder in here. So let's go ahead and create a file inside of it, and let's just go ahead and write our first Python program inside that file. So I'm going to press create new button. So this is to create a folder, and this is to create a new file. So I'm going to create a file. I'm going to call it path underscore 01 path underscore 01.py, just like that. So once I do that, you can see even the Python file has a Python X kind of like logo on it. So good. So once we have that, I'm just going to go in here and simply say print, and then just say hello world. So you can see with of using VS Code, we have the colorings, we have also the auto, like I didn't have to type in the exclamation mark twice. Sorry, I mean I didn't have to type in the quotation mark twice. I'll have to type in once, and VS Code is intelligent enough to know that there needs to be a closing quotation mark. So you can see we have that right there. So this is what we wrote previously. So once we have this done, I can just simply press this button right here. But if you install VS Code freshly, one thing you need to do after doing this, you have to go ahead and press Ctrl and S to save your file, or else it won't work. So make sure that you press Ctrl and S to save your file, or you can go in here and just go ahead and save. Click on save, just like this. The reason why my file is already saved is because I allowed auto save. So if I disable auto save and I go in here and change something, and you can see that I have this dot on my file right there. Okay, so you can see there are white dot, but if I press Ctrl and S, the white dot changes to back to the cross. So that shows that my file is saved. But if you want to enable auto saving, you can just go ahead and click on auto save, meaning that your file will get saved every time you make changes. You don't have to press Ctrl and S, and that's really good advantage, because sometimes you can forget to save your file and you'll be writing your program and you might be getting errors, but the issue is that you forgot to save your file, right? So once I have this done, I'm just going to go ahead and press the play button that we got through installing Code Runner. So this is going to go ahead and run our code. So I'm going to press play, and we have an issue right here. It says that disable shortcut from setting manage app execute alias. Python was not found running the argument to install the Microsoft Store or disable this shortcut in app manage and then execute aliases. So we have an issue right here. It says that Python was not something was not found. So let me just go ahead and just say run Python file, and just let's go ahead and run Python file. So if I go ahead and click on run Python file, it's quick. Now you can see it's printing hello world right here. So now it works. So sometimes it gives you this error, so you have to go ahead and just select run Python file specifically. Now you can see we're running our program and it's simply printing hello world, which is what we specified right here. So great, our Python file runs successfully. So another way you can do this, run your Python file, is by using the terminal or CMD. So if you're on Macbook or Linux, we call it terminals. If you're on Windows, we call it a CMD. So to run the code in here, I'm just going to do a dir. If you're on Macbook or a Linux machine, that's called it's called ls, right? So ls, but on Windows it's just dir. Okay, so once you do a dir or an ls, depending on your system, right, or operating system, you should now see a file called path underscore 1.py, and path 1.py file, we can run this file just to execute the code that is inside of our Python file, which is just a code to print hello world, right? So we can just go in here and simply type in the following. So you can say py and then path, and then you can press tab to autocomplete. So just say py and then path underscore 01.py, and or you can just type in path and then just press tab to autocomplete it for you and just run it. So once you press enter in there, you can see now it has printed hello world, and that's the content of this file. So you can just say hello world, let's say this is from, let me just say this from terminal, just like that. So once I have it there, so you can see hello world is from terminal. Since I have autosave included, I don't have to autosave it, so I can go back in here and then press the top arrow key to return to the command that I have just written and press enter. Now you can see hello world, this is from terminal. Great, so it works fine. So you can press the top arrow just to top arrow or the down arrow on your keyboard just to rewind the command that you have written previously. Since we wrote this previously, I just press the up arrow to return it back, and I just press enter, and it will go and went ahead and run the code. So we can get hello world. This is from terminal. So congratulations, and that can be your first Python program. So you can see we have set up VS Code on Python. Sorry, we have set up VS Code on all operating systems, right? We went through all operating systems. We went ahead and installed Python on all operating systems, right? We discussed, except for Macbook, we need to actually do the demonstration, but we explained all the steps to do that. So great. And one thing I want to mention, but before we go away, is that even if you don't install VS Code and you just go in your terminal and type in Python, you can have the Python IDE that you have by default that you can just use to run your Python code. But that's not really good, because in here you cannot really it doesn't give you much. So that's why we're using VS Code, which gives you much. Okay, so let's say hello world, and just close all that, and just press enter, and you can go ahead and say it runs the Python code. So it's just as having the equivalent of having the Python interpreter from the terminal, right? You basically get the same thing just as here. So if I bring this aside, you can see it's basically the same thing, right? So yeah, that's the Python IDE that you have by default, but it's better if you use something like VS Code or PyCharm or something. But in this tutorials, we will be using VS Code for all this tutorial, all this series. So now that you have looked at how to run your set up VS Code and install Python on all operating system, yeah. So let's move on to the next section, and let's see what to be looking at in the next section. Okay. So great. So now that you have learned how to install Python and written our first Python program, it just prints hello world and everything works as we expect it to. So now the next tutorial, we're going to go ahead and cover variables and how to begin actually learning the fundamentals of programming. We'll learn what are variables, how to store data in a program, and write computer programs that can store data in the computer's memory and all of that. So that's what we'll be covering in the next tutorial. So I don't want to go bore you guys with all the details that what you're going to be covering. So just know that you're going to be covering variables, and it can help us store information in the computer's memory and stuff like that. So yeah, so that's all this for this tutorial. And for making this tutorial, I use SlideGo for this tutorial, so you can find. I also use flat icons for the icons. And thank you for watching, you guys. I hope you find this interesting and helpful, as programming can be a really good and important skill to pick up as we're going into the modern world. Programming is gonna becoming increasingly essential. So I thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed the tutorial so far, please make sure that you like the video, you join the channel, you can subscribe the YouTube channel, and hit the notification bell so you can be updated whenever I upload the next video. Okay, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Keep safe.